Hey guys, this is Alex. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a review on Monster Train. And basically, Monster Train is very similar to Slay the Spire in terms of how it works. Also Grifflands, but I would probably categorize this game more closer to Slay the Spire type of gameplay. Obviously a very heavy focused card deck building dungeon runner. It's pretty much how I would categorize this, and it is basically Slay the Spire, I would say. But the catch is that there's a lot more emphasis in terms of not so much as using your champion, they say, which is basically the main free card character, unique card that they give you for each run, and each champion has very specific skills basically, and there are all these champions that are separated by race, it seems like, and you start off with only two, but then you get more as you play through, and most of these most of the way you unlock these are via just playing enough monster cards or killing enough enemies. So that's one thing. And then they also have a lot of cool mutators, and the mutators are actually pretty, there's a lot of them, but I haven't had the chance to use any of them just yet, but there's a very good amount of different types of mutators, so that's always good. But I haven't had the chance to go through them because I kind of like to go through and just go vanilla most of the time anyways, for at least to get a review out. So there's that. And then one of the cool things about this is that you can you're basically on a train transporting a heart that you really care about. I forget the exact premise behind the heart, but I think the Devil's Army failed or something, and then you're trying to revive him with his heart. Something like that. You know, those crazy stories that video game stories that don't really make sense, but you have to think of something, right? So basically, what separates this from Slay the Spire is that you're on a train track, and then you can kind of preview what's going to be coming up, and you have a good idea of, do I go down this path or another? I know in Slay the Spire they show you like the little symbols showing where you're probably going to be going, but they're never really. So there's not a whole lot of variety in terms of different types of encounters in Slay the Spire. In terms of, I'm not counting the ones that are like question marks in Slay the Spire, because the question marks in Slay the Spire can literally be anything really. But so there's like a merchant, there's like a what is it, boss battles and stuff like that in Slay the Spire. But in this one, it feels like every single battle is a boss battle, because at the end you fight some super strong enemy at the very end. So there's that kind of difference right there. And also, there's two different types of shops. One's specifically for spells, and one's specifically for units, which is basically the little monster guys you summon out. But the catch is, once your monsters actually die in battle, unless you have a special perk on this monster that's called Endless, that lets you respawn them basically, they're dead for the whole entire rest of that battle encounter. So that's something really to keep in mind of when you start playing this game, that once the character dies, they die. But then I find it really hard to like usually when one monster dies, usually the other one is going to die not very long after. So just also keep in mind that for the encounters and the battles, there's a set limit of how many monsters you can play on each. There's a set limit of how many monsters you can play on each floor. And it's based on like the energy points that they have at the top of the card, that for monster cards at least. And basically the number determines like pretty much their weight on that floor, and only a certain weight can be on a floor. So I think the default weight is about 5, I would say, about 5 weight. And that's just something to strategize, because the longer you go on, the more apparent it becomes. It's like, okay, I have way too many monster cards that I can't even use because I don't have any slots open for any of the floors. So you just got to keep in mind those type of things. And one of the cool things is that you can prioritize either or. Usually separate the train tracks whenever you pass an encounter to either all monster stuff or all spell stuff, usually, is how they separate it. And everything else just kind of feels random in between in terms of other little goodies that they spread out in terms of the split in the train tracks. Sometimes you have some I would categorize the iceberg as more of a random encounter. It could be really anything that you could find there, but what I find is usually either you're gonna have to give some money or health to find something like an artifact, which is basically like the little what is it, relics that you would find in Slay the Spire, and those give you kind of like little extra bonuses for all your cards, or they can be very specific as well, but usually they have some form of effect on all your cards or deck. So usually those are pretty good, but there's also a few other things you can get out of the iceberg, which is maybe enhancing one of your cards. So that's just something to keep in mind. I would probably say that Monster Train is probably not super hard until usually around the final boss. For some reason, the difficulty usually ramps up significantly at the final boss, which I'm not sure how I feel about it per se, just because it feels like it just comes out of nowhere in terms of how much the difficulty rises at that point. But yeah, that's just something to keep in mind about that. And then I really like how you can make the encounters or battles go quickly, because that's something I really hated about Griftlands, where I couldn't speed up the battle. I don't know why they wouldn't do that, but they just don't have it in that game. But I really like having increasing the speed, and it just makes the going through each run a lot faster and quicker. So I didn't feel as much burnout compared to Griftlands as this one. So that's just, I really like that. Really liked it. And then what else? The art style looks really nice for the most part. I thought it was going to look worse in terms of the trailers, but once you start playing it for a while, you kind of get used to it. So nothing too crazy good, but it's still pretty good. So I really liked it. And then for some reason, the music in between like battles or encounters, to be honest, I can't even remember what the music sounds like during the encounter, but I remember the music that happens after the battles, and it kind of usually sounds, for some reason, it reminds me of Persona 5. I don't know why. The Persona 5 music, usually when you're running around town and you're not really doing anything type of music, it has that kind of vibe. I don't know why. It just reminded me of it. But overall, the music sounds fine for the most part. Nothing super memorable outside of the intermission music, but it was fine. And then I would probably say replayability. I'd probably say in terms of game time of actual fun, I'd probably give it around, I don't know, 15, 20 hours probably. If to find all the races, and then 15, 20 hours probably. To find all the races, and then to play through them all and be able to get at least one win in all of them, I'd probably say it takes probably maybe even 10 hours if you're really good at it, but I would probably average it around 15. But one of the other interesting features about this game is that you can actually compare your runs with the other fellow friends on Steam, and I think that was a pretty cool feature, but I feel like no one really will use it or even notice it that much. But it's kind of like a nice touch. That's a cherry on the icing, I would say. Overall, probably art, probably say it's probably more like an 8. Music, probably give it like a 6 or 7. It's just there. It's okay. And then gameplay, I liked it for the most part. I would probably give it a 9 in terms of gameplay. Replayability, I'd also give it pretty much a 9. So overall, I'd probably say rate this game probably more like an 8.5. I know that's a little bit higher than Griftlands from last review, and I would say that Griftlands, at where it is currently, it can definitely get past an 8.5 or even get to a 9 with enough time, but I feel like Monster Train kind of feels more of a fleshed out type of game already, since I don't think Monster Train is in early access anymore, but they're still doing a lot of updates, which is nice. But Griftlands still has a lot of work to do, so that's why I rated it the way it is. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and you got what you wanted out of it. So I hope to see you guys in the next one. Later.